Greetings to you all. My name is Benjamin Ferencz, and I am the sole surviving Nuremberg war crimes prosecutor. I want to thank Astrid Raisinger-Corsini for inviting me again to make a contribution to the Salzburg lectures. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person this year. I think I attended more of those lectures than anybody else in the world. I began years ago when my friend Otto Trifter was still the guiding light. And I see from the program that I know practically everyone on the program, and I want to extend my personal greetings to all of you. My apologies for choosing this form of greeting rather than going back to Salzburg again, but I hope that my son will be there to represent me. The program that you have today is a rather technical one, authorizing international criminal justice. Let's talk about international criminal justice. My connection to international criminal justice begins when I was a child. I was raised in a slum in New York. My parents were refugees from Transylvania, which was Hungary when my sister was born. A year and a half later, I was born in the same bed. It was Romania, which taught me that what the country is called doesn't seem justified to go to war about that. My earliest origins were in a high-density crime area. And I suppose by the time I was 6 years old, I had decided that I didn't want to be a criminal, and I didn't want to be a cowboy or a fireman either. I wanted to be on the side of the law. And in due course, I managed to get a degree from the Harvard Law School, which was the best law school in the world at the time, still is, I hope. They recently gave me an award, a gold medal, which I treasure. I get lots of awards, but this one I treasure particularly because the last person who received it was Nelson Mandela. And he spent 20 years in solitary confinement because he believed that black people were just as entitled to rights as white people, and I share that view. I was a combat soldier in World War II. By that I mean I landed on the beaches of Normandy. I crossed the Rhine on a pontoon bridge in a jeep. I was there at the final Battle of the Bulge when the Germans counterattacked and had surrounded the 101st Airborne Division with no airplane cover because the weather was bad. And the most interesting and the most horrible of my experiences was when I was assigned by General Patton's headquarters to collect evidence in the concentration camps as they were liberated by the American Army. That took me right into Buchenwald and Mauthausen and Flossenburg and the Schoppen and a whole host of other camps where a young generation today can hardly imagine what it was like. Dead bodies spread all across the floor, moving slowly, and you'd be surprised they were alive, speaking to you with their eyes, crying out for help. The crematoria going, the stench there, bodies piled up in front of the crematoria like cordwood. They couldn't burn them fast enough. The inmates, those that are still alive and well, and there were Russian inmates there who were still strong, chasing after the SS men, catching them, beating them to death. I witnessed all of that and participated in the activities of trying to obtain the evidence, which included sometimes digging up the bodies of American soldiers who had been shot down on German-held territory and beaten to death by a German mob. With this kind of a background, you may imagine that the impression has remained with me. The Salzburg lectures was one avenue that I participated in because I felt that our real hope lies with the younger generation. And I think that's proving to be true. The goal always was to stop war making. Now, people would say, how can you stop war making? It's always been idolized and celebrated and hailed as a way to fame and fortune. And you want to change that? And I said, yes, I want to change it because it's stupid. It's not only stupid, it's cruel. Sending young people like you out to kill other young people you don't even know, who never did you any harm. And each side declares victory, and you rest a while, and then you start again. That, my friends, is the history of the generation that I am just leaving, and I see pass behind me. Constant people killing other people they don't even know. And all parts of the world. It's in Africa, it's in Latin America, tribes, and people of the same color, same religion, but a little different sect. We have to get at the root causes of that if we're going to bring about a change. Now, the primary approach that I always adopted was support for the rule of law. If we could substitute law for war, how the world would change almost instantaneously. You would save billions of dollars every day. You'd have the money to take care of the refugees, which is a scandal, that people have to flee the war and they have no place to go and they drown in the sea trying to escape, and you put them in a tent and hope that you can feed them so they don't die of starvation and overcrowding and all the rest of the disease. This is the world in which we live, and I find that quite intolerable. So what do you do? How do you go about changing that, Ben? You know, you can't just turn around and end war like that. I agree, you can't. Because people who are ready to kill and die for their cause are not going to be persuaded by your arguments. And you cannot kill an ideology with a gun. However, this is the world in which we live, the world in which you live. And how do you bring them back to their senses, or for the first time? When they were doing this with bows and arrows, it was not so dangerous. Today, from cyberspace, you can kill everybody. And we can't even use the nuclear weapons. It costs us billions of dollars to maintain them because we don't know what to do with the nuclear waste. So let's get down to specifics now. My first approach was, let's condemn aggression as the supreme international crime, as it was held correctly by the International Military Tribunal, affirmed by the General Assembly of the United Nations, and not contested, really, by anyone. So if aggression is the supreme international crime, you'd think you'd punish aggression. Ha-ha. Yes, but not if you're really considering maybe you might be the one punished. So you better not let them go punishing aggression, because who's going to decide? We alone can decide, says each country, when we will use our military force. Somebody else may call it aggression. We don't want to have a court with power to decide that question. And so they stalled. And they, I mean the major powers primarily. How do you stall? You can't say, well, we're in favor of war making. That sounds too stupid. So you try to camouflage it. You say that definition is not good enough. Oh, we have to make it better. But they never suggest anything which is better, which would be acceptable. So they played that game for 70 years. 70 years since the United Nations General Assembly first said, go and define aggression. And they pretend that it has not been adequately defined. That's not the truth, my friends. Anybody looks at it and says, it can't be. Hundreds of lawyers dealing it, they can't define that one word. Who's kidding who? They may be kidding the public, they're not kidding me. And so I said, let's do something else. And I wrote more on aggression than any other living human being. I spoke more on it. You'll find everything on my website. Use it in the interest of world peace. No attribution is necessary. Today, piracy, torture, rape are all recognized, and a whole host of others, are all recognized, genocide, as subject to universal jurisdiction. What about mass killing of innocent people? You need a determination wherever you can get it, on the national level, on the international level, and primarily in the public mind. To get at the root of the problem, it's too late to punish the person who committed the crime. We want to deter the crime and prevent the crime. That is the primary goal, recognizing that we will never have perfection. Cain slew his brother Abel. there'll always be people who will be fighting with each other and killing each other if necessary. I recognize that, but at least we have a duty to try to minimize that by applying the rule of law instead of the rule of force, which is what we now do. Change the name of the designation. Call it crime against humanity, which is what it is. The illegal use of armed force. By illegal, it's clear it's not in self-defense, and it's not been approved by the Security Council of the United Nations. That is illegal. It's illegal on all kinds of principles under the UN Charter. I know UN Charter binds only states, but it goes more than that. It sets a standard. Everybody is bound by it. If every state is bound by it, then every person should be bound by it. And say, well, we didn't sign on, or whatever technical excuses. Are you not prepared now to move into a world which says the killing of innocent people, which is not in self-defense and has not been approved by our selected authority, the Security Council, are you not ready now to say that that's a crime? Now, you say, well, we have to trust the Security Council. I'm sorry to say, the Security Council has, in my judgment, betrayed its trust. The United Nations Charter begins, we the people, in order to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. And then they go on, and one of the important enforcement measures is the Security Council. Well, obviously, that has failed miserably. The United Nations has done many other great things in the awakening of conscience and so on, and resolutions, but in terms of preventing the scourge of war, failed miserably. The war is going on all around the world, and it's the scourge of war. So you have to take another approach, and the other approach is something which is easier understood by the public. Call it a crime against humanity, and spell it out, as I've indicated, an illegal act, and then you have to change hearts and minds ready to accept it. I don't care if you call it genocide as well, you can do that. All wars are genocidal. That's the nature of warfare. So you can call it genocide too, and that's a more catchy term, but there too, legally, the lawyers have said, but it has to have an intent to kill the people. You can't prove intent. So nobody's been tried for genocide either. So the lawyers will quibble and quibble and quibble, and that's your job, young students. Stop the quibbling. I don't care what you call it. Call it crime against humanity, which I think is the easiest approach. Call it genocide, invent a new name for it. But stop the killing of innocent people who have never done any harm to anyone, and you go out and kill them en masse because their religion or their nationalism or their economic circumstance is different than your own. Those are the principal causes of people going out and killing other people. And you have to be courageous. Think outside the box. You have to be courageous not to be discouraged. And it can be done. It's not so difficult. We do all kinds of things which are quite impossible. We can go to cyberspace and invent the weapons to kill everybody on the planet, and we can't invent a method of preventing it from happening. Well, if that's the case, then goodbye, my friends. But I hope it's not the case. And the fact that you are still here studying, that Salzburg has become a focus for scholars to come from all parts of the world, determined to create a more humane and peaceful world. That deserves more encouragement. We also have to reach out more than we have to the religious community. And all of these things, the Planethood Foundation, it has been doing. Don't be misled by the name. The Planethood Foundation consists of two people, Ben Ferencz and Don Ferencz. And Ben Ferencz is now in his 97th year. So there are limits to what we can do, or even try to do. And we're trying to affiliate now with other institutions which are more permanent. And what we are trying to do then is to encourage national legislation to incorporate the ideas behind the aggression definition, the illegal killing of unarmed civilians and so on. Get that accepted nationally. Teach it in the schools, in the kindergartens, teach it in the churches, in the synagogues, teach it in the mosques, wherever you can. Teach people that this is a terrible thing to do, and it is a terrible thing to do. If they have experienced it, they know. If they have witnessed it, they know too. And if you're just worrying about technical details, Article 8B of 121.5, you get buried in the technicalities and you don't see the big picture. So never lose sight of the ball. And never be discouraged. because there has been a great progress. There has been an awakening of the human conscience. There are courts of human rights now existing in different parts of the world. There's a court for the law of the sea, which never existed before. There are human rights, not only resolutions, which is a good beginning, but only a beginning, but human rights decisions. We are arresting and convicting heads of state for crimes committed 20 and 30 years ago. This is all new, and it's great. Not because it's great to take a 90-year-old man and punish him for something which happened 20 years ago, but because it shows the movement of world society toward a more rational order controlled by law. And this exactly is what we have been trying to do, which I hope the Salzburg seminars will also be trying to do. And since I know most of you personally, and I know from the years of contact, I'm sure that you share my vision that it's necessary to try to create a more humane world. And how we do it, we'll have to modify this, depend upon the circumstances. But the law cannot be presumed to stand still. It does not stand still. It has to be adapted to meet the needs of the society it's designed to protect. That's what law is all about. So it's not good enough to tell me there was a decision 200 years ago which didn't say this, didn't say that. Make the law. You make the law. Make your decisions. You are sitting there, judges and lawyers. Make the decisions which have a human element to it. And don't get buried in the technicalities of precedents which are no longer applicable to the world as it exists today. You live in a very, very explosive world. And the idea of settling your disputes by the use of force is obsolete. And nuclear weapons are obsolete. And you have got to recognize that and invent the new devices and techniques beginning with the earliest age. You must learn to despise war making the same way as you now hail it. But it's up to you to find the modalities which are acceptable and which are enforceable. We have not yet begun to build the enforcement mechanisms that we need. We don't have institutions which have binding authority. We have moved away from when war was glorious and the best way for a man to die for his country. We've moved away from that. We now recognize that illegal war making is a crime. Whether it's punishable by the ICC or not, is still being debated. And we have recognized that humanity deserves to be protected under universal principles of justice and fairness and our own self-preservation. So these have been big steps forward, but the enforcement arm is still completely lacking. And law without force is farce. And so we're playing a game, and meanwhile, people are dying. And that's the new world. It needs new thinking, and that needs new people. So let me conclude by saying to my friends who are sitting in Salzburg among the professors and maybe among the new students who are coming on, I've developed a slogan, because people like to live by slogans: law, not war. How would the world look like if instead of going to war, you had a law? You'd save billions of dollars every single day. Bang, just like that. Because today we're spending billions of dollars on weapons we cannot possibly use. Because if they do, they'd kill everybody. Cyberspace, how much is the budget for that? And they conceal the budget. They never tell the public the truth. Don't let yourself get buried in the details. Always see the big picture and ask yourself, is this going to work toward the goal of a more humane world? If it does, do it. If it doesn't, either ignore it or do something else. That's how we make progress, and we have made progress. So don't give up. Law, not war, is the slogan. And then, of course, you say, how do you do that? Well, never give up is also my slogan. Never give up, never give up.